Woke
Steve
Supremacy
Bannon, Trump's
News.
one-time political advisor, has turned himself in at the Manhattan District Attorney's Office for allegedly defrauding donors to the We Build the Wall fundraising campaign for a wall along the southern border. So, in other words, he is being accused of ripping off Trump supporters who wanted to fund an effort to build a wall to keep immigrants out of the United States. Because if there's one thing that I know about Donald Trump and those associated with him, they never miss an opportunity to rip off their own supporters. Now, he spoke to reporters after arriving to turn himself in, saying the charges were, quote, all about 60 days to the election. Because sure, why not? I mean, the election really hangs in the balance. Whether or not Steve Bannon faces consequences for his actions is really going to have an impact on the results of the midterms. Everyone's sitting around thinking about Steve freaking Bannon. Anyway, here's what the schmuck did. The state charges brought by the Manhattan District Attorney's Office resemble federal charges for which Bannon received a pardon from Trump and allege that Bannon and the We Build the Wall defrauded the fundraising effort for We Build the Wall defrauded 430 Manhattan based donors out of $33,600. Across New York State, there were more than 11,000 donors defrauded out of more than $730,000, according to the indictment. So, what does that mean, defrauded? Well, he is being accused of raising the money and then putting it in his pocket. Okay, fattening his pocket up with donor money that was meant to help build the wall. Now, the indictment charges Bannon and We Build the Wall itself with 2 counts of money laundering, which carries a maximum sentence of 5 to 15 years in prison. There are additional felony counts of conspiracy and scheme to defraud, along with 1 misdemeanor count of conspiracy to defraud. And there were 4 people involved in this. 2 of them, by the way, have already pleaded guilty. One of them ended the trial with a mistrial. But the quartet allegedly bilked donors to We Build the Wall and used some of the $25 million raised on personal expenses, including a luxury SUV, a golf cart, and cosmetic surgery. Fascinating. And that's according to the federal indictment. So as I mentioned, 2 of the people involved have already pleaded guilty. 2 Florida men, an Air Force veteran, and a venture capitalist indicted with Bannon in the federal case pleaded guilty in April in connection with their role in the alleged scheme to defraud We Build the Wall donors. And Bannon has pleaded not guilty to the charges, which is the least surprising element of this story. Actually, to be quite fair, I don't think any element of this story is really surprising. But we'll see what happens. And what's important to keep in mind is that the president of the United States has the ability to pardon individuals who were convicted of federal charges. In this case, we're talking about the state pursuing Steve Bannon. So let's say he's convicted of this. It doesn't really matter if someone like Trump, for instance, gets elected and has the ability to pardon Bannon. In this case, he wouldn't, because the charges are being brought forward by the state rather than the federal government.
Okay, so I actually keep an open mind on this. If I was on the jury, I'd have a perfectly open mind, because sometimes there are nuances in cases like this. And so there's a lot of different factors, and I want to mention some of them. So, for example, what percentage of the money did they use to actually construct a wall? Was it 80% of the money? Was it only 20% of the money? Where did the rest of the money go? In a previous story, we had heard something about a yacht. But in this case, there's no discussion of a yacht. But there is a luxury SUV, the golf cart, etc. So did they buy the SUV in service of the wall, or is the SUV sitting in the East Coast and one of these crooks is, if they are crooks, driving it around thinking, ha, ha, you idiots, you paid for my SUV. This doesn't have anything to do with this, the wall at all. Well, those things are really, really important to whether you're going to convict them or not. And then one last part that's very relevant is, what did they tell the people that they raised the money from? Did they say, hey, listen, this is going to go to administration and it's going to go to the wall building. Obviously, we're going to have to hire some people, including us, and we're going to have to pay their salaries. Did they say any of this? Right. Now, let me tell you what we know publicly so far. At a fundraising event in 2019, Bannon told donors, quote, Remember, all the money you give goes to building the wall.
Oops.
Okay, that doesn't sound good. Okay, if I'm on the jury, I want more context, but right now, that's bad. Okay, so did it go to that? Well, as Anna explained, certainly a lot of it didn't, but I've got more details. One more from ABC News here. Instead, they explained the campaign's president, Brian Colfage, received a salary of $250,000 that was secretly funneled to him by Bannon, who directed We Build a Wall to transfer tens of thousands of dollars to a nonprofit that he controlled, which then paid Colfage, quote, thereby obscuring the source of the funds, according to Alvin Bragg, who's the DA there. So, well, if he proves that in court and they said, oh, it's all going to go to the wall, and Bannon secretly funnels the money to his allies, and also relevant how much to himself, right? Well, then he should be in massive trouble. That's theft, and that's stealing from you guys. And as Anna pointed out, the right wing doesn't mind it at all. They love con men. They're glutton for punishment. It might be a kink. Like they're like, oh, Bannon stole from me, and they used it to get luxury SUVs. Yeah, right. They might get off on it, but it is illegal. And yes, the right wing, I know they're shocked every time, but you're not above the law.
Yeah, and look, I don't know if all the people who were allegedly defrauded are even aware of this case. I would be shocked if right-wing media were doing what we're doing right now in covering this story. And so many of them might be in the dark about the fact that their money didn't actually go toward what they intended it to go toward. But with that said, if there happen to be individuals who find it titillating to be defrauded, that's all fine and dandy. Go get yourself involved in some sort of role-playing situation. Obviously, defrauding people through a fundraising effort like this is against the law. And I'm sure that there have to be some people sprinkled in there in that group of people who were allegedly defrauded who didn't appreciate it. And so we'll see how this all plays out. Again, I think it's important that the state is pursuing Steve Bannon and this case because of the fact that he was pardoned of any federal investigation into what he allegedly did. And if it does get convicted, I'm curious to see if he ends up spending any time behind bars. We'll see.
Yeah. So Anna, one last thing on that. So he had co-conspirators, and they would normally be charged with him in this case. They weren't, which leads to obvious speculation that they've turned evidence against them. Here's another piece of evidence on that. Colfage, the guy that Bannon directed the $250,000 towards, apparently, was asked by Judge Annalisa Torres, and you promised that 100% of the money would be used to build that wall, is that right? And Colfage answered, yes, Your Honor. And then Judge Torres said, after keeping that large sum of money for yourself, you did not tell the IRS you received the money. Is that right? Colfage answered, yes, Your Honor. So that appears to be overwhelming evidence. Let's see how Steve Bannon deals with that. And guys, like right-wing lying politics 101 is after breaking the law and committing a crime, you have to pretend you're the victim. So, oh my God, 60 days before an election, poor me, it's about me. No, the crime was about you and your SUVs. So we'll see you in court. But super last thing is, I'm worried about what Anna said. If Bannon and his lawyers are able to drag out the case long enough, Trump might win the presidency. Yeah, he can't, pardon him from a state crime, but God knows what they'll do. There's 1,000 pieces of theatrics